Let's look at the agenda and see if there's anything we want to add to the agenda. Does anybody have any business they want to add to the agenda?
Oh, do you have this? You do.
No. You have 2 agendas.
There's 2 packets there, in case somebody else wanted them. Do you want one?
Have you a written agenda to follow along with us?
Sure.
I don't bite.
You what? You don't have an agenda?
Yes, you do, that's right, isn't that, that's this one.
This is the
This is the
agenda?
agenda right here.
But you had a whole packet. You just
Your
put
packets
put
over
over
the rest of your
there.
packets
Okay.
over there.
This is the agenda.
Yep,
You should
that's
join
the
this
agenda.
board, make it exciting.
Awesome.
Okay, so, oh, there may be something in there that you shouldn't have. Let me see.
All I need is a front page.
No, I just want to make sure that the confidential thing from Barry's not in there. I don't think I put it in there, but,
No, I don't think you did, Sue.
okay, so you're good to go.
Okay.
I just want to
All
protect
right.
you from issues. Okay, so is there anything we would like to add or subtract from the agenda as presented?
No,
Okay,
I'll make a
Uh,
motion.
Steve Schaefer making a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Sandy Petrusky. All in favor of approving the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Brief public comment, Bob?
I would just say that you would make some note that Mary Beth's not here
Okay,
for your,
That's
I have that in my, I have
Okay.
here that it's excused absent, that she wrote us a letter saying she's not gonna be able to be here till May 8th because of conflict with her children's schedule. We don't have any correspondence. New business, annual budget. The budget that was presented to the board by me to them wasn't translated properly when they did their budget. And I talked to Gary prior to the meeting, and he said he would be happy to go over it with me before the next meeting in March. So I can still probably do that if, you know, we think we should be able to try and get it corrected so that it's proper. One of the things that I'm interested in is, you know, what the actual interest income is. Haven't been able to put my arms around that yet.
Is anybody?
I've tried to talk to the treasurer about it, and they just said that our income is down so much, but I need to just get more information. So I'm gonna try and get more information about that.
Interest income is down?
No,
That makes sense.
no. So,
I thought he said he had a $200,000 surplus in.
I know, there was a lot of things that were being thrown around at the meeting, and that's where, you know, I wasn't gonna challenge it in public because I had talked to Gary, he said he would help correct it.
I think they were referring to a $200,000 surplus in their budget, wasn't it? Because I don't think it was interesting.
I don't know. But David made a, you know, he said it's the first time ever that we're plus on the money. I heard him say that on some investments, and you even jotted it down, pointed at it, right? So that's kind of curious.
It also says something about the budget being balanced.
It's always a balanced budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not-
We have a surplus of $9 million.
I mean, yeah, there's the trust fund,
Yeah.
if you will, or whatever it's called, and then there's interest that's
That's
generated off of
accumulating
that.
off, and that's where our budget is supposed to come. Am I
Right.
correct in this? That's where our budget is supposed to come.
Our budget is
from.
supposed to come from the interest income off the landfill.
What do you want me to say here?
That Susan spoke with Gary prior to the Board of Trustee meeting, and he's regarding the Land Preservation Conservation Board budget, and we will be working it out. We will work it up before the
Before
March.
meeting.
Prior to the March meeting.
Is this our March meeting or the March board meeting?
March Board of Trustee meeting, in which they're gonna approve that budget, so I have to have it done before then. Anything else about the annual budget? I have a picture of you that, from an old picture, you don't even look like yourself. Look at you, look 100 years old.
That's not me.
Oh, good.
That's why it's not me.
I thought, is that you?
Well, no wonder.
Oh my
It
God.
doesn't
Look
look
at-
like
doesn't
you.
it?
Yeah,
He has
it
great
looks similar.
top,
That's-
he has
that's-
sunglasses on, I thought, he got the beard. You don't look like yourself then.
That's Mike Moran,
Because you don't look like yourself.
and our township supervisor.
Not himself.
I love that.
Although I might be in that article.
I think you are, that's
Yeah.
why I have it, but
And then that's why you probably assumed it was him
I
then.
remember that.
but it doesn't look like, it's like,
You're on
why,
the-
it
you're on
doesn't
the
look
back.
like himself.
I'm actually on the bottom picture.
There you
Oh,
go.
yeah,
And
there you
that's,
That looks like you.
yeah.
I
Well,
digress
that's that
there.
coat.
You're so much better looking than this.
Yeah, I'll tell him that.
I like good laughs, anyways.
Yes.
Okay, consultant report. Anything we can talk in open session?
Well, we don't have any projects that are public at this point.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about the Hornback property at this point, or
I'm not even sure we need to, I don't know, whatever you want to
is
do.
everybody familiar with?
But I have to say that I wasn't familiar until the night we met with Gary, that the purchase price, I guess, or if it was mentioned, I didn't get it, you know, I didn't hear it. When we were going through all this,
Or was it less than?
it was less than that. But,
You're kidding, because that's what I heard.
yeah, but I don't remember, I mean, that was kind of a surprise to me. I didn't,
It was news to me.
Okay.
When we were here, the three of us, in closed session with the Board of Trustees last week?
yeah.
Last
So,
Tuesday.
but I did go
It was the First
on-
I had heard the actual purchase price that Hornback paid for the property.
Yeah, but I did go on the Ann Arbor, I did Google the Ann Arbor article. I think I might have sent it to, I don't know what I did. But anyway, but it did talk
Yes.
all the detail. And there was a very nice, in the Ann Arbor paper, because I just Googled it, you know, had a minute, I Googled it. And there was a nice breakout on how it was done, and that there were 4,300 acres, or 4,100 acres so far in the Ann Arbor Greenbelt. And it was really a nice article about the Greenbelt. And anyway, but the Hornback talked about that as just one of the more recent purchases, or one of the most recent projects that was completed. And it showed the map, you know, that same map of the county, and it showed what it had a write-up of what the Hornback map will look like. But I went to the original base website in Ann Arbor to try to get that map, if it had the Hornback property on there. They hadn't updated it yet, because I was going to do another printout, right, so we could keep it up to date. But it was interesting that when you scroll down to the bottom of the page and you read a lot of the comments on there, there's a lot of negativism out there too,
There always
right?
is.
You know, and a couple of positives, you know, but the negative far outweighed, and the sarcastic far outweighed the positive, and that I thought was unfortunate. But I was impressed that, you know, I didn't realize it was over 4,000 acres and growing strong.
Mhm.
And they continually talk about, you know, they were looking for projects and they want to keep doing more. They talked a lot about Salem. They were very positive. I felt it was a very positive input on Salem. But, you know, in some respects too, it was kind of disappointing. I just thought, not the article, it's just where things are headed, that's all. But, anyway, a lot of opportunity. I think we're going to miss a lot of opportunity if we don't take full advantage of it. And 4,000 acres is a lot of land, and they've got money and they want to spend it. They're hungrily looking for projects. So,
And that was on what website? That was on AnnArbor.com.
no, it was,
I think it's the Ann Arbor
I'll look it
Chronicle.
up and I'll send it to all of you. but
Ann Arbor Chronicle?
It might have been.
Yeah, it was one of the two.
But it was a really nice article.
Yeah, it was an article, there was an annual report for the Greenbelt program
Oh,
that was produced, and the article was about that annual report, including, in December, they had, I think it was 5 closings.
wow.
Hornbeck was one of those 5.
Yeah, very, very, very impressive. I was impressed. I thought it was, very aggressive, and it looked good. It looked good for the community. And I actually did the close look in Webster, and they're really taking full advantage of that whole Greenbelt process. And when you really look at it, and you can see it from here, all those light blue areas, that's a pretty heavily concentrated area for that section of that corner of that township.
That map is maintained by county parks.
Oh,
And so, at the end of the year, we just did this. Everybody submits all of their completed projects, and then it gets updated, so it's,
Soon to be updated.
yeah,
is what
we're
you're
due
saying.
for an update.
But it looked pretty good. Looked pretty good.
Yeah, it
And
looks-
and I was able to manipulate that map. I downloaded it, and I think I can cut and paste it where I could just blow up just Salem.
Huh? Cool.
So I'm gonna play around with that when I have time. But anyway, it was a good article, and there was a lot of good conversation. I Googled just PDR in general, purchase and development rights. And there's just an incredible amount of activity in the country, across the United States on it. But it is controversial. There was a lot of people that were dead set against it. There was a lot of people that were for it. And so you had a good mix of it, but it was, I spent about 20 minutes looking at it. I had a break so I could do that and just, peruse it. But if you get a chance, Google, program development or purchase of development rights, and you'll be surprised. And there's a Salem Township in Pennsylvania, I guess, so I found that one too. But in any way, but if you get a chance to look at it, and I think you'll be impressed.
So to make sure that Carl and Sandy are up to speed on all of that. If you are, then we can move on.
Can we tell you the price that they purchased that
Yeah.
in closed session?
no.
Yeah, it's a
It's
completed,
public.
Oh, it
yeah.
is, because I thought
Oh.
you said that they said it in closed session.
I think it was
From the
before
board.
we were in closed session, I think, talked about it, didn't they?
Because I thought,
They-
I don't think it was, because I don't remember hearing anything about the price.
Yeah, I think.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah, we were talking about
Oh.
other stuff in closed session, and then that just came up also.
But we can discuss the Hornback deal because that's public information.
Right.
That's correct.
And we have to do it in open session.
So we can do that now.
Yeah, so if you want to know,
So,
ask
do
them.
we know what the price that they paid for it was? Because I thought it was 540,000, and I honestly do not know where I came up with that figure, but I thought that that's what it was. I thought somebody had mentioned that.
The appraised value of the property was $555.
Okay, maybe that's where I got it from.
And that was with the appraisal that we were provided, that was completed about a year ago.
What do you mean, 555?
$555,000.
Okay, total.
Was the total appraisal
Was-
of the property
was the development
78
value.
acres?
It
78
was
acres or 73? Because they
73.
pulled 5 up.
Correct, it was
Okay.
73 acres,
Should I be recording that?
I will.
555,000. That's what the appraiser said the property was worth. And the appraisal, the effective date, I think, was February 16th or something of that sort.
Of 12, because they had just purchased it in the beginning of the year.
The Hornback submitted the application to the Greenbelt program, even though he didn't own the property yet,
Okay.
which is unusual,
Uh-huh.
because typically you're dealing with the owner. But I guess the Greenbelt people thought, well, he's moving along on this, we're not gonna do anything until he owns the property, but it seemed certain enough that they said, okay, we will go ahead and commission the appraisal and accept your application before you actually own the property. So the effective date was February 16th, I think it was. It was completed sometime in early March. I can't remember the date for that exactly. And then he purchased the property on March 20th. And the sale price was $375,000.
March 20th?
Yes. So the appraisal was completed before the sale occurred.
And the sale was what? What did you buy for?
$375.
And it appraised
So
at
that's
5 what?
why-
At $555.
Okay, and I understand some of the.
Yeah, I do too.
Controversy
And-
that's happening
and
here.
None of us, myself included, asked what the sale price was.
Well, I thought at one time we said that we couldn't get that, I don't know why, because I thought we wouldn't, I thought we discussed it and I thought it was said that we wouldn't be able to get that information because he did not have to disclose that.
I don't
Now,
know.
maybe I might be wrong.
I mean, the sale of property is a matter of public record.
Okay.
But not instantly.
Not instantly, correct.
It might not show up for,
I thought we talked
Yeah,
about one time.
that's correct.
Here in closed session.
But it is a matter of
Yes.
public information.
We knew how much you paid for it.
I never knew that.
Okay.
And so when it came out in the course of our presentation to the board, I was like, you know. And I don't think any of the Greenbelt people knew either. They just, nobody ever asked the question. And it's a
So he
unique.
got a really good deal.
He got it great, he bought for 2/3 of the appraised value. Now, last week, after our discussion, I called the appraiser, I had a number of phone calls. One of them was to the appraiser. And he said, you know, I stand by my appraisal. That's what the property was worth. You got a great deal. I don't have any confirmation yet, although my Greenbelt colleagues are looking into this, but it appears that there was, it was called a distressed sale, where the owner apparently had some health issues. I heard something about him being in hospice. And so the property, I think, had been listed, you know, with an agent, you know, for quite some time, a couple of years, maybe longer. And nobody was buying it. And then, so what I'm surmising is that he was trying to sell it, couldn't sell it, ran into some health issues, and they offered him something. He said, I'll take it.
But wouldn't he have probably offered him, I mean, wouldn't the owner have had the understanding that he was going to get maybe $555,000 because of the deal that was being struck with Greenbelt
It was totally
and
separate.
County? And the owner did not know that. I mean, the owner of the property did not know
The original
that all
owner,
this
you're
money
saying.
was coming to
We
him
don't
back.
know.
Correct.
So,
I
see,
assume.
that's private. See, that's confidential information, so they didn't know, so the owner didn't know.
Didn't know that. Had it listed, I don't know, I was gonna try to track down.
Oh, yeah, what was the listing price?
I don't know. But that is accessible, but you have to have access to the multiple listing
Well, then
service.
that's why all of the, because he came here and met with us also. That's why all of that took place almost beforehand, because it was all being put in place in terms of. Okay.
So,
So we learned a big lesson. The big lesson being that
ask the que-
a person has to own it before we'll take an application, I think.
I
That
think that
makes
is-
it real simple.
I think it's one of the lessons, and I mean,
That is the lesson.
that's a lesson for all of us, but, you know, it was an application submitted to the Greenbelt program.
Right, it wasn't submitted to us, I know.
Um,
But whoever is going to be getting the PDR would have to own the property
Yeah,
prior to us. I mean, that's the lesson.
Well, we've got to put that in there, you know, are you a new owner, do you own the land, whatever.
But it's in there, isn't it? But we didn't process the
Yeah, but-
application. That's in our application.
Is it?
and
Yeah.
by the time that we
Oh, that's
started,
true, that is true.
Mhm.
by the time that we started reviewing it, he did own the property.
Right, but when he came
did
here.
Hardenbach ever make an application to our program?
No. The Greenbelt application was just forwarded to us, and then we treated it like one of our own.
They came to us and said, we asked us to participate, and we said yes. And we did not ask, I don't recall ever asking or even discussing the sale price.
Yeah, never. We had the appraisal, which is, you know, what we always have. And so in that sense, everybody acted according to their respective ordinances, to the law.
There was some county money besides the Greenbelt.
Because the county put in the same amount as we did.
Yep.
And the Greenbelt threw in 160,000 and change. And so you add their contribution, our contribution, the county's contribution, and then a 10% donation, and that's where it comes out to.
Well, he got it for 400 an acre.
Yeah. So, that's where,
That's good,
Yeah. It's in many ways very, nobody, I had never seen, and nobody else that had been involved in this transaction, county people and Greenbelt people, and we're talking about, between all of us, 150, maybe 200, 150, I'd say.
Properties
Yeah, maybe 200 actually, that have either been purchased or had development rights purchased. Nobody's ever come across a situation where somebody bought the property and then we bought the development rights after that. We're always dealing with, an owner who's owned it for a while, and they might sell it afterwards, but, up until that time, they still own the property. So it was an unusual situation, but nobody asked the question, so what did you pay for it? And so while we did act, legally and properly, in terms of making the contribution based on an appraisal, he bought it for a lot less than what the appraisal said it was worth. And so consequently, he got more than, well, I think that, going forward, if a similar situation arises, and again, it never did before, and it may never again, but you have to say, okay, well, you bought it for a lot less than what the appraisal said it's worth, we need to negotiate.
I can understand.
Absolutely.
Based on all of this,
Yeah.
this is all got a big blowback on it.
Yeah, so,
Especially if you're not happy with the idea of developmental rights. It makes it,
This was
it just adds fuel to
fuel
the
the
fire.
fire,
Yeah.
just another round in the chain.
It's unfortunate that was our first experience with a new board, or an old board, probably.
yeah. So anyway, I guess, I just want to make sure that, Steve and I and Sue and I have had several conversations about that. I also talked to the Greenbelt people and to the county people, and they said, well, we all acted as we're supposed to do, based on the appraisal.
There was nobody in that article complained or debated that conversation. No one from the county board, no one from the Ann Arbor Greenbelt board, no one from this board pushed back, right? No one had a fit over that. 3 to 4 boards reviewed that, and everyone was okay with the exception of you. And, but still, there's over 4,000 acres in the county that have gone forward and with a lot more to come,
That's just within the Greenbelt.
just within the Greenbelt.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
But perhaps not here anymore.
Thanks, Barry.
Okay.
The open space master plan, it's gonna
Our
happen.
first meeting is next Tuesday. Tuesday, is it Tuesday? I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I haven't looked at next week's
Tuesday
schedule
at
yet.
7?
At 7.
Is
yes.
somebody posting that?
There's an email that went out.
Yeah.
I mean, but is it posted?
I don't know, I'll call Donna and
Could
ask
you?
her. We still do not obviously have a representative from the board, and I'm not sure. we'll
That's
ever
okay.
have one.
I mean, Gary's okay with that?
Yes?
Yeah, I said so.
Yeah, but I don't think it's Gary that has to be okay with it.
No, I mean,
Because it came from the
we-
planning commission, they have
we-
to be okay with it.
Right, but we can, you can still, they're trying to decide who's going to be on it, on the board. And until they do, it doesn't prevent you from meeting, as long as you have a quorum. As long as you have a quorum, you can meet, just like we're meeting tonight, without Mary Beth. Thank you, Sandy, for checking on that,
Yes.
for posting, and also, the consultant will be there. Rodney will be there, good.
Yeah, Don's not going to take any kind of lead in this, it'll be Ron.
It's all right, I think, that's fine.
Is that gonna be a monthly meeting or, we don't know?
I think this is, let's get meeting, get our
Yeah.
feet wet, and then.
I think
see
that you
what-
don't need to meet very much in the
see
beginning,
what the people
except
are-
for, to just get Rodney on board to do what he wants to do, and then you guys will discern his information.
Is Rodney,
Tom Pennington's
Pennington's-
partner kind of thing.
I think there, yeah, I think there's an association, I'm not sure.
second team guy? I remember that.
Second team guy. Well, I don't know about.
Sixth man.
Well, is he an employee of,
He works with Don Pennington. He's associated somehow.
Oh, yeah.
Somehow, I don't know what the relationship is though, because I got a Christmas card from him that listed him as a separate company.
Oh,
He's probably
I'm
contracted.
not sure he's a subcontractor. or
Okay.
what.
it's probably doesn't matter. All right. Now we're on to D, which is presentation to the Board of Trustees. I only heard good things from the board and from people in the assembly about what a great presentation that you did and Barry did, and thank you for representing our board so well.
Thank you, but I apologize that it just didn't work out.
Yeah,
It's working out, it'll work
you
out.
did a good presentation.
You did a great presentation.
It's just, I just don't feel as though it's sunk in.
I still want to thank you.
Okay.
All right? And thank you, Barry.
Well, Steve did the lion's share of that, with the whole presentation.
And input from you guys made it easy.
Yeah, but it was still a lot.
It's a
of
team
effort.
effort. Yeah,
Yep.
team effort.
Okay, old business, we haven't had any, we do have a need to do a letter, don't we? We received one application.
Yes.
So, Mike, if you, process that, then I'll process it here,
Okay.
okay?
Nothing new beside that,
No.
though, that I've heard
Okay,
So we have a new letter that we'll discuss in closed session.
well, no, yeah, we can, I don't- we won't discuss a letter in closed session, we just are gonna process a letter
Oh, okay.
for an application.
There was one application that came in for a very small
Very small.
property.
But we still have to acknowledge it.
Yep.
Website development, I was gonna just go to I don't think they've got it together yet about how they're doing the website, but at least I want them to correct what we have on there for who's what on our board and when our dates are, because it's not correct.
Okay.
So we need to do that, and I'll do that, but I just haven't had a chance to do it. So I wanna correct our site. Okay?
Did you want to,
And I wanted to put the annual report on there, what?
this is not on the agenda, but,
No, that was part of our minutes.
okay.
That's part of, attached to the minutes, okay? Did you want to put that on the website?
I just saw it in the packet
Oh, okay.
and wanted to make sure that
It's all in order,
Yeah.
yeah.
everybody's seen that. and-
All right, so now we are at, oh wait, we're not gonna go into closed session yet, it's out of order, because we're gonna now go to approval of draft minutes for January 16th, which includes the annual report. I'd like to hear any changes,
I think you ought to have a date.
huh? January 16th?
No,
On your-
he's
on
talking
your
about the report,
minutes.
Your minutes. The minutes.
That's the annual report that's attached to the
We're doing that.
January 16th.
Yeah, those are our draft.
Right.
This annual report doesn't stand alone.
It does, but I want it included.
Well, just add the date.
Yeah, okay, we do that.
Now, how did or has the annual report been transmitted to?
Yes, it was, and it was in January, and then I have to ask Del Wensley, he talked about it in his minutes, but he didn't actually attach it. So, because I have a problem with minutes, and that they're not standalone, so that 5 years from now, they're gonna say, what annual report, we never, it's not in the minutes. So I'm gonna go to him, and I haven't had a chance, he's only here in the mornings, so, I'll have to go, and every time I'm here, he's not here, but I wanted to talk about how these minutes are done, so that it includes this annual report. And it's in our minutes now, so that'll be good. So do I hear a motion to approve the draft minutes, including the annual report for January 16, 2013, as submitted?
Anybody else?
I will make a motion that we accept the minutes of January 16.
I'll second it.
With the attachment of the,
Which includes the 2012 annual report. And let's call it the 2012 Land Preservation Conversation Annual Report.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Andy. All in favor of approving the draft minutes of January 16th, which include the Land Preservation Conservation Annual Report of January 16, 2013, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Aye. Approval of closed minutes from January 16th is right here. And we can all sign that when, if and when that gets approved. I need a motion, however.
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Steve.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Sandy. All in favor of approving the closed session minutes as submitted for January 16, 2013? Please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Public comment, Bob?
Yeah, I got one thing.
Okay.
More of a question. Sue and I talked about it a little bit before the meeting started. The Four Tracks property is coming up on, I guess, auction. Is there the possibility of either the township or the Greenbelt or anyone like that actually looking at and bidding on those kind of properties?
Sure.
I mean, will they be there when, I guess they picked a date or something? I'm
It was
not
this
sure.
afternoon. I had it on my
Really?
calendar that it was this afternoon on Thursday.
Really?
Oh, it was today?
Yeah,
Oh.
that's what I had on my calendar.
Okay.
Today at 1:30, that's why I told you.
Well, in the future, I mean, is that something that maybe the township could look at? I don't know how you would do it. Would you set a contingency that says someone here is authorized to spend up to X amount on an auction? I don't know.
That's a very good question. Because generally we deal in appraisals.
Yeah.
And if you don't have an appraisal, not to say that the Board of Trustees can't act
Right.
in the absence of that. I mean, they have other authority besides what's been granted to this board.
Sure.
Back tax.
But does the county, or does the Ann Arbor Greenbelt, do they act on things like this?
It was not sold, it was auctioned for back taxes, we
I
think.
think, that's what I'm thinking.
So
It
somebody,
was back
if
taxes.
someone put a deposit, now this is how I understand how they work, if I go and I put a bid on a property for back taxes, that doesn't mean I own it, it just means I have an interest on that property. but if they miss it, I think it's a couple years in a row, and I keep paying the taxes, then I can claim the property.
3
Oh,
years.
okay.
3
It's
years,
3 years.
yeah, I think you're right, I think it's 3 years in a row. But if they sell that property, outright sell it, that owner has the right to pay off whomever put an interest on that property. Plus, they gotta pay that guy interest on the money that he put down, right?
Okay,
That's how they get out.
okay,
It's kinda sticky.
okay.
And to answer your question, not that I know of.
Yeah, okay,
Um,
thank you.
Yeah, it's generally, somebody submits an application, and you evaluate the application and decide to move ahead and so forth.
So
Um,
this was
And, you know, it does get a little tricky because
Yeah, that's what it sounds
it's
like.
public funds and there's usually a process and it's
Right.
harder to jump into those kinds of situations.
Must have got that at the office.
There might be good opportunities out there. Even like, maybe not in this instance, but like a foreclosure sales or something where it's
Sure.
the final sale. That might be something that would be good opportunity.
Yeah, you bet.
Oh,
Yeah.
did they have?
Okay.
No, he was.
One other thing, I know, I've heard that some of the board members prefer buying property outright and wanting to turn it into parks or anything like that. Have they been made aware of the fact that there's gonna be 80 acres donated to the township once the
Yes, they're aware of that.
landfill closes?
Mhm.
Okay,
They're aware of that.
all right, thank you.
Yeah, we heard that from the board
Okay.
last week, that they wanted to acquire properties for
Mhm.
public access. That was heard loud and clear.
Then, do we have any board member comments on anything? I do. I would like to ask this board if we want to continue meeting on Wednesdays as scheduled, because we changed it for Mary Beth, and I don't know if it's good for everybody. But we could go until May, back to a different day if that,
Do we need to meet? until
and we also
May?
need to ask if we need to meet much more.
Do we need
It's
to
up to
continue to
Barry.
meet monthly?
We don't have to meet. Our ordinance says quarterly.
I think we need to meet as long as this, our one open piece of business is active.
Okay.
Okay.
Till that's concluded one way or another. I think we should meet monthly.
Okay.
Or-
Does everybody
or-
agree with that?
Or with, what do we
If
call
there's
it?
no activity on it in the previous month, do you still want to meet then?
Should we meet
And
just?
I'm not, please understand, I'm not saying that,
No.
that we shouldn't be,
Well,
okay?
how are we
So I'm
gonna keep
just
track
asking.
of what's happening? Isn't
Right,
our,
that's
isn't
right.
isn't the landowner supposed to respond to us in some way? Is that the next
Yes.
step?
Yes.
Well, when, I
Well,
guess,
when that
once it-
happens, then, after that, we should have a meeting.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that, let's say in the next 30 days, they don't respond,
Yeah,
and there's
if they don't
nothing
respond,
changed
then I
at
agree, I
all.
don't see any need to have a meeting.
Okay, so we could call it only if we need it? Is that what you want to do?
I would suggest that you
Plan.
retain it for now.
Right.
And then a week or so ahead of time, the chair and I will have a discussion and determine whether there's a reason to meet. If not, then the meeting can be canceled.
Right.
You can all be notified,
I like that.
and we can post
idea.
it to say that the meeting's been canceled, you know, in the adequate time to do that.
Okay,
The ordinance, by the way, says that this board shall meet at a minimum on a quarterly basis.
Right.
So- Pardon?
Better ordinance.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'd like to look at that. Not this instant, but before we,
Okay.
One thing, all right, so new news, or not new news, but old news. When I was perusing the internet, I pulled up Canton and just what happened in Canton, because I heard someone made a comment that that Canton had problems and Canton wanted new development. So I just went into the Canton website and I just started looking at it, and they had the history of Canton. And I copied it, and I thought about bringing this to one of the meetings, but I figured it was too much. But I'll leave it with you guys if you want to see it. Basically, thinking that the history of Canton is the future of Salem, and that's kind of what I added to that. But what it was saying is, it was kind of interesting, and it goes on about the beginning of Canton. Of course, in 1800s began like everything else, a small farming community, but in 1961, there were 5,300 people in Canton. Today, there's over 90,000.
90,000.
How much was the 1961?
Wow.
5,300 people in
50 years.
1961. So in my lifetime,
And now
Yeah,
it's what?
it's the year I was
In
born.
74, we were very, very small.
yeah, it was, and now it's over 90,000 people. From 1925, Canton was known as the sweet corn capital of Michigan, we knew that. And or from 1925 to 1970, and it was mostly farm and agriculture. And then it goes on to talk about, the change and how the schools started to come about. The first subdivisions came into play. And,
You said one other thing before you, yeah, I remember hearing it, I don't know if it says in there or not, but in addition to being the sweet corn capital, it was the number one township in southeast Michigan for agricultural
yes,
production.
it said that.
Uh-huh. It was
So-
generated more agricultural activity through farm sales than any other township in 7 counties.
So the population remained relatively stable until the late 60s, when Holiday Park, a new subdivision, was developed south of Joy Road and east of yet I-275 had not been constructed yet at that time. They built a public school. They purchased a 130-acre centennial farm at Canton Center and Joy Road. At that time, they had envisioned the construction of a campus high school to serve the community. The school lacked the basic sewer and water service, so here's the catch. An agreement between Canton Township and a developer with the sewer lines that extended to serve the school site. That basically went the entire distance of the township.
And that explains then why they told us that there would not be any development past Back Road, because that school is
Yeah.
east of Back Road, that whole school system.
Mhm.
So, and then at that time, so City and Water was extended through the eastern portion of Canton to development. And once that, and so the developers knew that all they had to do was penetrate into the community with the sewer line, and that all the adjacent properties that are the same clay that we stand on here with that wooden perk would be eligible for sewer lines and development.
And it was clay.
Well, yeah, it's hard rock, Canton clay, it's terrible. It's like
That's what I'm saying,
concrete.
it's worse than the clay out
Yeah.
here.
Mhm.
So in the early 1970s, and some new existing Canton residents shared the desire to maintain Canton's rural atmosphere. The group met for over a year before gathering enough signatures to place farmland preservation millage before the electorate. The 4 mill tax increase would have permitted the township to purchase from farmers the right to develop their land for new housing. The farmer would still own the land, but have the right to farm. However, they would be precluded from selling the land from development. Sound familiar? Twice, farmland preservation was placed before the voters, and twice the voters rejected it. The second time, the issue was defeated by a much larger percentages, and at that point, the community residents understood that Canton would continue to grow. And that was basically the end of rural Canton.
You could back that up 50 years and rate Livonia on that.
Yes, you could.
Livonia was the township.
And you could fast forward
Except for
30 years and
was
call
that
it
little
Salem.
town, Cooper Town, there's some little town stuck in there. Otherwise, it was a township and it was agricultural.
Mhm. Yeah.
If any of you ever heard of Wilson Dairy? Wilson
Sure,
Dairy?
sure.
Yeah.
It was in Livonia.
Right.
The farm was in Livonia.
So, when I read this,
Joy Road and Mill Belt.
this was after the 22nd presentation, and I don't know if you guys think that this would be value added to bring forth again.
I don't think it would hurt.
I mean, if you want, do you think we need to make another run at the wall? I got a hard head, I don't care.
I think we need to hear next Board of Trustees meeting.
Okay.
I suspect it'll be on their agenda. I don't know, I'm just guessing, it might be on their agenda.
Anyway, I thought
That is
this
very
was,
true though, because I did look through that.
I thought this was very
And I did look on YouTube, because I didn't look on
prophetic, I think is the word. When I read it and after
So
the.
you're the reason
I'm
that
the
there's some
culprit,
problem.
you know, I keep moving one more hour.
You destroy each community that you've lived in.
But I would
From
like,
Livonia
you
to
know-
Canton to here.
Well,
Anyway, sorry.
So when I read that after all of our discussions.
We could just copy that and put it in their mailboxes for them, for, you know.
It's it'll hopscotch all the way to the Capitol lawn. It'll connect city to city to Chicago. It's gonna happen.
But we
Yeah.
did, we would go before the board on our regular meetings, and they would assure us that there would be no further development.
Sure.
What happened?
It just, it's like a big mushroom of
Mhm.
population, and when you get that.
Were you on the board then?
Oh, no.
No, you lived through it all, you heard about it.
As I said, we went to the board meetings and watched this all happen.
I had heard that there had been a moratorium that they placed on Canton, but then,
Supposedly, but the reality is that population just kept coming in and there was no more spaces. And, I mean, they don't have the infrastructure to deal with their population. Look at their roads at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, that's true. But, you know, I was a kid when all that mess was going on, and I remember driving out to Canton, and it was just, you would literally drive out whatever road, Warren, Ford, and it was farms and fields, and come back months, just a few months later, there were bulldozers everywhere.
And
Incredible,
that's what I said, it's
just
like a big-
incredible. I used to hunt pheasants at Napier, North Territory, and now it's all subdivisions. We used to pick pumpkins there for a guy. It's terrible.
They were the first communities to try to do a millage for farmland preservation anywhere in Michigan. The next one was Peninsula Township, you know, in Grand Traverse County.
That far away,
Old
really?
Mission Peninsula, and that was 92.
wow.
So it was 15 years
Yeah.
later. And Canton was way out in front of it, unfortunately they lost.
Yeah. Well, the reason, the second time it lost by an even larger percentage is because by that time, that many more people had moved in.
And they don't want more taxes.
Right. Yeah.
Do we want to read this aloud or no?
Even though development brings more taxes. 4 mil, I didn't realize it was 4 mils, I mean, that is a lot.
I think you might as well, so people can hear it.
So, Sue forwarded an email, and I'm just going to read it aloud.
This is from Mary Beth.
From Mary Beth, and it said, Gary and Susan, I've had a significant change in my schedule, and I'm unable to make the land preservation meeting until after May 8th. And she goes on about an education opportunity for her children, and I respect that. She apologized for the inconvenience, but also know that the board can continue as long as they're a quorum, which we are. And she went on to further comment, it's important to me that you both understand, and she's writing to Sue and Gary, how extremely disappointed I am at the Hornbeck situation. I find it embarrassing and a misuse of taxpayer money. Due diligence was not done to investigate and evaluate the transaction. In general, I am not in favor of the purchase of development rights as a tactic for preserving and conserving land. This is what I've come to conclude after much careful thought and consideration what is best for our township and for generations to come. Looking ahead, my hope is that Salem Township will have good opportunities for land acquisition for public recreation areas, and I'm eager to hear of any programs on some of those areas that were discussed previously. So, I'm just a little confused now. I mean, the way that we've all been going is with the development right purchases, right? And primarily, because we really don't have enough money to purchase large chunks of land. but I'm a little bit,
Nor a plan to say what we're gonna do with land.
even if someone walked up and said, here's a piece of land in our budget, we're not really set up to go ahead and make offer and buy and do all that.
I have a question that relates to that. Somewhere, one of our early discussions, I thought it was said that land owned by a government agency, like our township, is not eligible for preservation. Did I imagine that, or is that fact, or what?
So is your question, if the township bought property,
Could it be,
Eligible for the different programs for funding is
Eligible.
what you're referring
is
to.
it, can it be
Preserve.
preserved permanently?
there's a couple of questions in there.
Yeah,
One is that if the township owns a property, it is then no longer eligible for any other funding.
Programs,
Yeah.
right?
So, for example, we cannot apply for the federal Farm and Ranch Land Protection Program.
well, is there a,
And we can't go to the Greenbelt or county parks and say, would you kick in some money?
is there a federal law that describes and limits the purchase of development rights?
For that particular program or
No,
generally?
In general. In other words, land that is preserved by someone purchasing the development rights or donation or is permanently preserved.
If they've conveyed a conservation easement on it.
But it has to be done prior to us purchasing it, right?
That's what you
Well,
Explain to me before.
almost exclusively, the purchase of development rights is done by a private entity. It might be a person, might be a couple, might be, the heirs to an estate, it might be a corporation.
And
It's a
part,
private entity.
and part of
conveying
that,
rights.
part of that reason is that in that situation, the grants, public grants are available to that
Person.
transaction.
Correct.
Where if the township owned the property, the grant monies likely none of them would be available.
Correct. They might be available if the township, if it's a privately owned property and the township wanted to buy it, then other entities may contribute funds toward that purchase. But if the township actually owned the property, if it was a privately owned property, township bought it, then you're not eligible for any other programs.
Okay, so now we have a letter from happens to be a board member, happens to be a member of our board, that says, essentially, I really like the concept of preserving land, but I do not want to see public funds extended for that purpose.
For buying development rights.
For development rights,
Yeah.
for farmland is what she
And
meant, I think.
several, at least, well, let me just say, several of our current Board of Trustees individuals have said to me, we should not purchase development rights, but we should purchase land.
Mhm.
Okay, now, if we purchase land, didn't we just describe a minute ago that it could not be preserved?
Several years ago, I was doing some work in Pittsfield Township, south of Ann Arbor, with the supportive board of trustees, who wanted to buy property for the township to own, both as publicly accessible land and also just for open space. I'm thinking of one property in particular that was about 95 acres, I'm gonna say. It was an old farmstead. That had a nice chunk of, beautiful woods on it, and then some farm fields. And the whole property was up for sale. And it was I think it was an older woman that owned it at that point, widow, and she just wanted to sell it. She didn't want to sell development rights, she wanted to sell the property and be done with it. So the township wanted to buy the property. And so what they ended up doing in that case was agreeing to a sale price with the owner and entered into a purchase agreement for that amount. But before the sale of the property was completed, the owner of the property conveyed a conservation easement to the Southeast Michigan Land Conservancy. And then the township bought it. So they bought an already conserved property.
At a reduced price?
And they bought it at the full price.
So she donated basically the PDR to the Conservancy? She didn't receive any kind of financial,
Probably just a tax write-off.
No, there's no
That's what I'm
tax
saying.
write-off.
No, no.
so she didn't receive any financial, call it,
Well, was
No tax
benefit,
benefit.
benefit at all for
Correct.
conveying the PDRs?
Because she didn't donate it, the easement, and she didn't sell the easement for less than what it was worth. She just conveyed the easement, and then the township paid full price for the property. So the township owns it at this point. It's accessible to the public, at least part of it is. But it also is an easement on the property.
And protected property too.
Right,
For
and
future
they were
development.
looking ahead to a time when they might not be in office, and it turned out the next election they lost.
Right.
And they didn't want a future board to be able to sell an unencumbered property. And so we did that. Now, the other thing that may be possible, and that had their blessing, the blessing of their legal counsel. Their counsel also said that it may be possible for an entity, a government entity like a township, that owns a property to convey a conservation easement on
Same
it
way.
afterwards.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's ever been done.
That's really ground.
And, you know,
But you'd have to have a public hearing and all kinds of things to do that.
he was,
Convey
the council,
township property to,
right. So,
Anyway.
so, I mean, when you convey a conservation easement, you are devaluing the property. You're taking it from $8,000 an acre down to $3,000 an acre. And whenever, and it's a public asset, it's owned by the public. And if you're devaluing an asset, then there's it had been done for, I think in other circumstances, I don't remember what they were right now, but what the attorney said was that if you were gonna do that, that you'd probably have to take it to a public vote. So actually put it on the ballot to say, ask the electorate, can we convey a conservation easement on this property? And again, I don't think it's ever been done, but he thought that might be possible to do.
might be legal.
Yes.
Well, we
Legal,
tried to
yeah.
do that last
Doesn't
year.
necessarily
We
make
tried
it
to do
possible.
that
Right,
last year.
legal to do, but then he thought it's a board of the people, so people would be able to say yea or nay on it. If they said no, then you couldn't do it.
We went through that with our legal counsel a year ago, so trying to look at doing that for some of the property that we owned in Salem Township.
Oh.
And remember, they discouraged it.
They weren't on board?
The legal counsel said it was, just like what everybody said.
Yeah.
Never been done, devaluating an asset and. didn't want to do it.
I'm trying to, and I didn't review the survey that they took It seems to me that the survey said that everybody, and this is what was confusing to me, everybody wanted the wide open rural spaces. But I also thought part of the survey was is that they were not inclined to want parks in that kind of thing. Am I correct in that, or?
I don't remember, I didn't bring my book with me, I have the survey on there, but the number one attribute of the community was the
Open,
rural
right.
atmosphere.
Right,
I didn't read anything in there that it was negative on parks.
okay.
I don't
That's what I'm
recall
saying,
reading
I
that.
gotta go
Well,
back and review
it was
because
something
I
like
thought-
70% of the people responded positively about the rural.
Right, but then I
Preservation.
thought there was a couple questions in there, I remembered concerning purchase of land for parks and I thought that got maybe negative or more negative.
Well, that's what the
response.
challenge is of this,
And that seems.
this
in
committee
direct
that you have, is
conflict
that you're gonna be writing an ordinance that will address what kind of public facilities we will have. And so, yeah, I think that's key to this whole thing. It's like, it's not just any kind of public access, we want only certain kinds of public access.
Right, I mean, we don't want it open to ATVs and four-wheelers, I mean, it'd be,
And I'm not sure
walking,
big
hiking.
playground equipment or any of that yet. I mean,
you know,
I
and
don't know,
that's
we
the
have
wild
to ask the
card, right?
people.
That's right, exactly. There has to be, as you know, true forms of public input
Right.
in the process, and you might learn that people
Right.
want to have certain kinds of recreational facilities available to them.
That's what you're.
That's right, so you would have to, no?
Yeah, and then you can respond accordingly. So, I'm gonna go back and make sure that the people are clear that, if there was a property that the township wanted to buy, that there may be other sources, and the trust fund, state trust fund is one of those sources, but obviously we're a ways off from getting that. But, you know, the county parks, villages, and the Greenbelt program, for example, may be partners in that they would contribute funds toward the township's purchase of land. I wouldn't be surprised if they were, if they asked for some kind of other guarantee on that also, like the conveyance of a conservation easement on the property before the township bought it. I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if they would say that.
Sure, because otherwise it's stuff really tight. And I decide to hold on to it and then
Yeah.
it goes along and
Yeah.
wants to develop it.
And unencumbered like that, if the township just used its own funds, or if there's a requirement in the trust fund process that, there was, I forget the name, what they called it, but there was some document that had to be recorded with the deed when we bought this property in Scioto, that stated that the trust fund had an interest in that property, and so it was on public record, so that if the township ever did try to sell that property, that would come up, and they'd be able to intervene and prevent that from occurring. Something like that could be recorded also. But even in the absence of a trust fund contribution, if the other, potential programs wanted to kick in some money, they're gonna want some, I think. I wouldn't blame them, obviously.
Absolutely.
So it is possible to, to get there, Carl. But once the township owns it, then we're no longer eligible for FRPP or the Greenbelt program or any county program or anything like that. You can't, I mean,
One government agency can't give money to another government agency.
once they already own it, correct. They can contribute toward a purchase, but they won't contribute funds after you've bought it.
Okay.
Thank you. Any more board member comments on anything? If not, we're gonna go into closed session for consideration of nominated properties.
I'm motion we do that.
I'll second it.
At 8:07.
8:07. Roll call vote, Carl Gierman,
Yes.
Sandy Petrowski,
Yes.
Steve Schaefer,
Yes.
Susan Bejan, yes, all yes, by roll call vote. Thanks, Bob.
You're
Kevin?
welcome, thank you.